Now, son, who's that?
Saint Michael.
Who is it?
Saint Michael.
And what did he do?
He cast Satan out of paradise.
Good boy.
This film sort of represents a foundation upon which all my other movies are based, in a way. It sort of creates a world in which the worlds I depict in Mean Streets and Goodfellas and Raging Bull, to a certain extent, Taxi Driver, it's the foundation from which those worlds emerged. And yes, there's no doubt this is based on history. There's no doubt about it. But it is still a film that is more of an opera than history.
The story of Gangs of New York began long before it ever reached the screen. The film was first conceived in the 1970s, but its production proved both expensive and extremely difficult. Filming took place at Rome's legendary Cinecittà Studios, where enormous sets were built to recreate 19th century New York. These sets hosted some of the most complex and technically ambitious action sequences in Martin Scorsese's career. The production process, however, was far from smooth. Reshoots demanded by producer Harvey Weinstein reportedly delayed the film's theatrical release by an entire year. The social tensions depicted in the film have strong roots in history. In the mid-19th century, successive waves of immigrants arriving in New York provoked fierce backlash from so-called nativist groups. The Democratic Party's Tammany Hall political machine frequently collaborated with these reactionary forces in exchange for votes. All of these tensions erupted during the New York draft riots of 1863. What began as resistance by white working-class men who did not want to be conscripted into the Civil War quickly escalated into a racist pogrom in which black New Yorkers were attacked and killed.
The film on the surface is about America in a way, very strongly about America. As I say, ultimately, what is an American? What is this country about? Who is an American? You know, what individual freedom means. But also for me, it's a story about a young boy who has to become a man and has to rise above his father, so to speak, and in so doing, becomes a man. At the same time, it's almost as if the country becomes mature too. The country comes of age, because at the end of the Civil War, that's when you really have the end of the revolution. In a way, the country really wasn't, I think, was really whole by 1865 rather than right after the Revolutionary War. So in a sense, both come to maturity at the same time.
The narrative of Gangs of New York follows Irish immigrant Amsterdam Vallon, who returns in 1862 to the infamous Five Points neighborhood where he grew up. His purpose is clear: revenge. Amsterdam seeks to avenge the death of his father, Priest Vallon, a gang leader who was killed in a street battle by his rival, William Cutting, better known as Bill the Butcher, and his gang of anti-immigrant nativists. Scorsese's New York resembles something closer to a medieval village than a modern city. It is an arena of mud, blood, and power, where gangs with names like the Dead Rabbits and the Plug Uglies fight for territory and dominance. The film opens with a brutally staged battle set to the music of Peter Gabriel. In a style reminiscent of Goodfellas, Scorsese guides us through the muddy streets of Five Points. You can almost smell the city: thieves, prostitutes, con artists, tavern keepers, shop owners, street musicians, and migrants from every corner of the world fill the frame. Amsterdam infiltrates Bill's inner circle, patiently plotting his revenge from within. Along the way, he meets Jenny, a pickpocket and Bill's lover, and crosses paths with Tammany Hall power broker William "Boss" Tweed. Played with sharp cynicism by Jim Broadbent, Tweed delivers one of the film's most telling lines: The integrity of the law must be maintained, even as it's being broken. Other memorable figures include Happy Jack, a gangster turned policeman, and Walter Monk McGinn, characters who underline just how thin the line is between order and crime.
In terms of finding a revenge, getting that revenge on Bill the Butcher, he has to gain the Butcher's trust.
It becomes a little more incestuous, where, you know, this relationship that I have with Bill, I can't help but admire his life and who he is and the way he conducts himself. And there's a certain affinity that I have for him. So it's a much more complex revenge story than just me chasing him for the entire film. We actually become friends, and it becomes this relationship where he almost becomes like a father figure to me.
He didn't count on one thing, and that is his heart. He didn't count on the feelings he'd have for Bill and also for Jenny Everdeen, whom he met. Jenny's an interesting character because she represents part of his digression, part of his realization of his feelings, his emotion, his feelings of love.
Basically, all three characters in the movie, Amsterdam, Jenny, and Bill the Butcher, are pretty much composite characters. I represent sort of the new world that's coming in, sort of hordes of immigrants that were coming in at the time. And he's a pluralistic character. He's somebody that represents the new world and what America was to become. Whereas Bill the Butcher, he's a nativist, and he represents the old world, and, you know, he wanted to keep the power amongst the people that he felt built the country.
Bill, even though you can understand his conviction, you don't agree with his conviction, you don't agree with his racist points of view, but you understand how he could feel that way, how he thinks he sees things.
People were more inclined to stick within their own communities because they felt strength in that.
They didn't come over to become Americans. They came over being Irish people in America. So they stayed in these tight-knit groups and gangs. Most of them didn't want to stay there. They just wanted to make enough money to go back.
I literally knew nothing about this world and how significant and important it is in our history, and it's in none of the history books that I ever read as a young man.
Some of the film's most compelling material lies in its portrayal of ground-level corruption, the everyday bargains and favors from which a great metropolis was built. Tammany Hall's system of trading votes for favors makes modern political machines seem almost innocent by comparison. At the same time, Bill and his Anglo-nativist followers openly denounce Catholics, Chinese immigrants, and anyone not descended from the nation's so-called founding fathers, branding them as heathens and parasites. Gangs of New York is a passionate, operatic film that is more concerned with the sweep of history than with individual character arcs. As the story progresses, the personal drama between Amsterdam, Jenny, and Bill is gradually overshadowed by larger historical forces, inevitably drawing the narrative toward the draft riots of 1863. As a result, the emotional pull of Amsterdam's journey is weaker than in many other Scorsese films. Still, this marked Leonardo DiCaprio's first collaboration with Scorsese, and he has moments to shine, alongside Cameron Diaz and a strong supporting cast. Yet the film's true center of gravity is Daniel Day-Lewis. His Bill the Butcher is not merely a brutal thug, but a darkly poetic figure, someone who sees himself as an American hero and the unquestioned ruler of his muddy domain. For all its flaws, Gangs of New York remains a powerful film. At times it is visually stunning, driven by ferocious energy. It also represents a turning point in Scorsese's later career, signaling a move toward longer, heavier, and more overtly epic filmmaking. This trajectory would continue with The Irishman and reach new heights with Killers of the Flower Moon. Gangs of New York is not a perfect film, but it is a loud, ambitious, and unforgettable cinematic experience.
My father told me we was all born of blood and tribulation. And so then, too, was our great city. But for those of us what lived and died in them furious days, it was like everything we knew was mightily swept away. And no matter what they did to build this city up again, for the rest of time, it would be like no one even knew he was ever here.